Here on the Made It Music podcast with Smithfield, Trey, and Jennifer. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know you guys are busy dominating the world of country music and putting out new music left and right. We make our own. It's out.
Yep. It's
amazing.
It's been out, and we're so excited about this project. It's been a while since we put something out.
Saying that because you produced it?
It could be that too. It could be that too.
I may be biased. I very well may be biased. But seriously, it's one of those that, I mean, we talk about it and high-five each other on the studio just because of how awesome we think it's so great. And it's just been an honor to work with you guys and get to know you in the process. But I still don't know your whole backstory.
Not at all.
We haven't sat down and...
How did we even make music together?
How did we?
You don't even know us.
That's the weird thing about making music. Is you just sit down and get in these writing rooms and you don't even really know each other. And then
True.
But that's how it works, right?
Yeah, but we still made awesome music together.
We did.
So that's a good start.
So you don't have to know everything about somebody.
You don't. That is a great takeaway. So what was the moment, and you can answer this collectively or, maybe for each of you guys the answer is different, but what was the moment that you knew you wanted to pursue a career in the music business?
Ooh, for me, I was 9 years old, and both of us grew up in Texas, and my family used to take me to this country music show that Leanne Rimes grew up singing on outside of Dallas, and I'd go to them almost every weekend, and I knew, when I saw that show, I was like, Mom, that's what I want to do with my life. And she was like, okay, honey, And I'm like, no, really. So when I got old enough to audition, Leanne Rimes' godmother put me on the show, and I sang at this Opry type of thing until pretty much until we got together and moved to Nashville.
How does that happen? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, in Texas, every small town has these country Opries, and so I just grew up doing that and that show, and knew I'd always wanted to go to Nashville. But I remember being 13 years old and getting my first check for music. And I was like, dang, I'm going to be rolling. I'm already making money.
It's a lot of money when you're 13 years old.
Oh, yeah. I think it was a $500 check, which to a 13-year-old, that was really cool.
I was not making that kind of money on chores when I was 13. So yeah, I can tell you that. I was 18, actually, when I started in music, when I knew it was a career. And I had never sang in front of anybody in my life. Total, go up to my room after school, get my guitar, get away where no one could hear me and sing by myself. And my friend signed me up for a talent show my senior year of high school, unbeknownst to me. And I felt like I had to do something for the talent portion, and that's the only thing I ever felt like I was any good at. So I sang a Goo Goo Dolls song, and my principal walked up to me afterwards. He talked to me twice my entire high school career. And he was just like, you're pretty good on that. You should consider doing that for a career. And that's when I was like, maybe I should. And so I started doing the band thing. I was in a rock band for a few years in college, and then I ended up getting with this one after we broke up, and there it all started for Smithfield.
Wow. So have you gone back and thanked that principal since
then?
No.
He had literally never talked to me except for twice before that, but I just took that as a sign, I guess, or maybe that was just divine intervention right there that planted that in my head that could be a career.
Well, here's your chance to thank him.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Merle. Thank you.
Mr. Merle is his name. Oh, yeah. We really should be thanking your cousin Emily, because that's the whole reason why we're together is because of her. But
okay.
True.
Tell me about Emily.
She kind of was the brain behind putting us together musically, I guess, if you will. I was in between bands, and we went to lunch, and she told me about Jennifer, and she was doing her Texas Opry thing. And she was like, you should reach out to her and see what she's doing. I feel like you guys would sing really well together. And so I reached out on Facebook, I think, or something.
Yeah, you sent me a Facebook message.
Oh, man. And I was just like, hey, I don't know what you're doing with your music, but my band just broke up. And would you just want to get together one day and try singing together? And not really expecting, or not that I wasn't expecting something, but just, you never know. I mean, we could have sat down together and just sounded terrible and this is what we always say is you can have two great singers, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to blend well together. It's all about the blend with the duo. And so, we lucked out. We sat down that day and sang, and it just, it sounds kind of cliche to say, but the goosebumps on your arms and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do this.
You didn't want to
Yeah, she didn't want to do it.
No.
The duo? You just wanted to be solo artist or what?
Totally. I was studying music business. I had, grown up doing country music. I always wanted to do this on my own. And Trey's been a family friend since we were 10 years old. We've known each other. Oh, wow. And like grandparents went to high school together. Parents went to high school together. So I felt like I couldn't say no. And Emily had told me, this is weird. His cousin does Thanksgiving with my family.
Okay.
Instead of going to his families. Like our families have just always been intertwined.
Very tight knit.
Okay.
Yeah. So Emily told me about it, and then he sent me the message, and I was like, I feel like I can't say no. So I didn't think anything of it. But truly, when he came over and we sang together and I heard the blend of the sound that we make together, I was like, this is something really special.
So it was literally that, like in that moment, you kind of just knew.
I knew.
Wow.
Yeah. I set up a show at the Aardvark in Fort Worth as soon as we were done singing that day. And if you've never been to the Aardvark, then good for you. And we just like played a show, I think literally for our parents and like the bartender and 2 people or something. But it was just the first like little step we made to like, hey, let's actually think about doing this as a duo.
Wow. So specifically as Smithfield, like was the name kind of contrived right away, or how did that sort of evolve?
That was like the first name we came up with because it's our last names, Trey Smith, Jennifer Fielder. And we were like, oh, well, no, we need something cooler and like more creative. And for like 4 months, we had some of the worst names I've ever heard. I can't even remember what we brought up now, but we ended up coming back to Smithfield. Because like that's us. It's us combined together.
You ever heard like the old phrase, you overthink things? That was definitely what we did, because the very first one we should have gone with, but like 2 months later, we're like, you know what, maybe Smithfield is right.
Yeah, and I'm sure nobody has ever asked this question, but do you have like a bacon endorsement or anything like that?
We've
never heard that.
We've played a show for Smithfield, so it was like Smithfield presents Smithfield.
Yeah, that was random.
I was going to say, that's like the most incredible strategic brand alliance you could ever
Yes, and who doesn't like bacon? So it's like we could really get some good use out of it.
Buy a record, get a free pack of bacon.
Man, we actually had to talk about that name when we first started because we had, fears there were going to be some legal issues with it. And they were like, well, as long as you don't sell bacon or anything, like get into that space, you're fine. So we actually can't sell bacon. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble. So I got to stick to the music.
Gotcha. So let's rewind a little bit. So you did that Aardvark. Did you say it's called the Aardvark?
It's called the Aardvark.
Okay.
It's right next to Texas Christian University in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay. So you did the Aardvark. What did you do next? Like once you put your heads down together and you figured out, okay, this is something we really want to pursue.
Yeah. I was going to Nashville 2 months after that show. And I had already had some shows scheduled for CMA Fest. So I thought, okay, well, if we're going to be a duo and do this thing, then I'm going to bring Trey with me to see if he really wants to do this and pursue this as a career together, because he had never been to Nashville before. Mm-hmm. So our families brought us up here. We perform all week long, but the week prior to that, we were practicing in my college dorm room. And my roommate, who I'd never met before, she literally had just moved in that day, was in the kitchen while we were practicing. And she's like, oh my gosh, y'all sound amazing together. She's like, my cousin works in the music business. I don't know what he does, but I know he does something big in music. Yeah. And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Well, it ended up being legit. He was a booking agent at William Morris Endeavor, which is the largest booking agency in the world for all genres. And she sets us up on a meeting with him. And he brought us in at like 8:00 in the morning that week on that trip. And he told us later he brought us in that early in case we sucked. He's like, I didn't want anybody else in the office to hear you guys if you were bad. But he said,
mitigation there.
That's right.
Yeah. He said that just something in his gut, because I asked him that later. I was like, why'd you take that meeting? And he goes, I don't know. Something in my gut just said, do it. And anyways, he said he had 30 minutes, not much time. 3 hours later, we're discussing our plan to move to Nashville. And he's like, I see some real potential, but I want you guys to start writing your own songs, figure out who you are as artists, stay away from Broadway unless you want to be a big cover band, start playing writers' rounds. And he gave us like a list of cool places to play, like Bluebird Cafe and Listening Room and Belcourt Taps and Tapas. So those were the 3 places that we started when we moved to town.
All the staples.
Yeah. So
Man, and can you dive into that a little bit, because there's such a Nashville subculture that I think people are so unaware of outside of watching the show Nashville.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think a lot of people think Broadway is Nashville. Like
we did at first.
Like why stay away from that? And then what's the deal with Writers Rounds? Like what is it? Why do you want to go those?
We were told initially that Writers Rounds are the way that you meet people. And really it's true. You know, it's if you've never seen a Writers Round before, it's basically 3 to 4 people that sit up in a line on a stage, and you go down the line and you each play a song, and you'll do like, 3 or 4 rounds depending. And you meet people through that. You say, hey, we should write sometime, the famous Nashville line.
That doesn't always happen.
And it doesn't always happen, but you actually do write sometimes. And that's kind of how you network. That's like the earliest stages of networking in Nashville when you first moved to town. And that's why they told us, write. But also you need to be playing Writers Rounds. Write with people, network with them. If they like the song they wrote with you, they'll introduce you to this person, and it just keeps going. And I think personally, that's the most important thing to do when you first move to town.
I agree.
Get involved in Writers Rounds.
So still to this day, that's totally applicable. If a new artist or writer's moving to Nashville, Writers Round should be the thing.
I feel like it is because you not only start writing and co-writing songs, but you're also networking in the process, which is so important.
Well, I love that you touched on that, and I really this is something that I want our audience to get from this interview more than anything is just. What I've noticed is that you guys are so good at the relationship side of things.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
that sounds like that was the start of it. Like that maybe planted the seeds of some of those early relationships.
Absolutely.
And as an indie artist, that's kind of what all of us are going after. We want the relationships with the people who can put us on this stage or on this playlist or on this radio station. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to sort of dive into that a little bit. So what was your mentality moving to Nashville in order to kind of start developing that? Like, were there certain kind of strategies? I mean, strategy sounds weird when you're kind of like,
but you have to really,
like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, how did you go about that?
Well, again, we were very fortunate to meet one person who was actually already a professional in the industry, and he introduced us to publishers, and that is how we started getting co-writes and diving into that. But he also he introduced us and told us about like Whiskey Jam, which is a big popular show here in town. And when we first moved here, before it got super touristy, that's where all the industry people would hang every Monday. And then at this bar called Red Door. So me and Trey would go hang out at Whiskey Jam, and then we would go to Red Door. And I'm telling you, we would meet artists, writers, publishers, label folks. I mean, a lot of A&R people would come out because they would go watch the people on Whiskey Jam. It was like the show in town. And so we just sort of strategically placed ourselves. We'd look at other artists that had buzz going on in town, and then we would go to their show because we knew if we went to their show, these key people would be there. And that's actually how we met Leslie Fram, who runs CMT. We met her at 3rd and Lindsley. That's how we met John Marks, who was ahead of SiriusXM at the time. And we just boldly went up and said, hey, you're John Marks, we're Jen and Trey, we're a duo called Smithfield, like we'd love to meet with you. And not asking anything from anybody, because I think people put up their walls real fast when you start going, hey, will you do this for me?
Right.
But if you more so approach it from like, hey, let's get coffee, or let's just get to know each other and kind of form that relationship. And that's what we did. We just were bold.
I'm taking notes because I feel like networking has been one of those things for me. Like, I'm asking these questions selfishly, wanting to know, how do you do that? Like, okay, what does a conversation like that look like for just literally walking up to somebody out of the blue and not freaking them out?
Right? Yeah.
But like,
I think it's just like visibility too, like putting yourself in those situations to be seen. And even if it's not a long interaction, it's like a consistent interaction, because I think the mistake a lot of people make is like they want to walk up and expect to walk away with something after one conversation. And it's not like that at all. I mean, you have to start just being in front of them. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Nice to meet you. Okay, done. Next time you say, hey, I met you at this place, blah, blah, blah. And over time you develop a relationship that turns into something or it doesn't. But it always has to start with just, hey, introducing yourself, being in front of them, being visible. And that's why they always say, like, go out. Even if you're just seen out, even if you don't say hi to one person, just like go somewhere, make a lap, leave. You're seeing people recognize you in the community. So
that's good. I'm gonna you should trademark that. Go somewhere, make a lap, leave.
Make a lap. we literally we'll get to the front
should
door.
Be on a t-shirt.
We'll get to the front door and Jen will just go, let's make a lap.
Oh, I'm the best at it because I don't want to hang there for 3 hours. I'm like, let's get one drink, make a lap, say hi, bye.
Because the beauty of it is, if you make a lap, inevitably you're gonna
get stopped along the way,
and
you end up being there a little bit. But
so was that I mean, it sounds like it's been really natural for you guys. Was it at all intimidating when you first moved to town?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And this, again, we've been here almost 7 years, and this has been a long time developing these relationships. And I think that's why it does take so long, because if you approach it from an organic standpoint, it just takes time. It may take you, like Trey was saying, 3 or 4 times before you ever get a card or an email. And then by the time you get that, then you go to coffee or a breakfast. And then by the time you get that, I mean, it could be 6 months before you ever get a meeting, but it's putting in that time towards that relationship.
Man, and just to follow up on that, because you guys have done so good at it, how did you even know to start out with? Like, if you don't know what you don't know, so how do you even know the people you should be trying to build relationships with in the first place? Does that make sense?
Sometimes it's by accident, but we always call Nashville, like it's the biggest small town in America, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. But I don't know. I think it's just you hear people talk about these people. So, for instance, like with Leslie, we were standing at the bar. And somebody talking to her behind us, we'd heard about Leslie Fram, and somebody said, all right, well, Leslie, it was good to talk to you. We'll see you, later. And
I was so nervous.
And I think Jen was just like, Leslie, I wonder. And then she just turned around. She's like, hi. She's like, are you Leslie Fram from CMT? And she's like, yeah, no, I'm Jen. And it just kind of went from there. So, I mean, word around town, people talk, if you're in town for probably more than a year, you hear some key names more than once. Because look, we're all trying to do it, as artists, as just industry folks. I mean, we're all trying to make headway, so the names filter around pretty massively.
Well, I had heard everything that Leslie was doing for not only females but new artists, and she was really passionate about independent artists. And CMT had just started this program called the New Artist Discovery Program. So I had been wanting to meet her for months and never seen her out. I didn't know what she looked like, and so that night when I met her, by the time we got done with our conversation, she's like, well, I've heard about you guys. I've heard how great you were. How about y'all come over to the office and meet the staff? And me and Trey were like, oh, wow. Like, we couldn't believe it. Like, that was our first big meeting. And we went over and played for the entire staff of CMT. And she's like, I love you guys. Like, you guys need to do a music video. And me and Trey are thinking, oh gosh, where are we going to get the money to do that? And we're like, yep, we will. We will get that.
Oh yeah. Played it cool. Like, yeah, we'll have one to you next week.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's just kind of how it started though, was a conversation. And then others weren't that easy. Like,
no.
John, we love John Marks. He's done so many great things for us. He's playlisted 3 or 4 of our singles and just been a great supporter. But it took him 4 years to ever get on the Smithfield train. But that's okay. You come around to it. We don't want to force anybody into it.
No. I mean, it's the same way with JR from SiriusXM. You know, I mean, for a long time, wanted nothing to do with us, wasn't interested in what we did. And he actually ended up coming to our Opry debut in 2015. Was it 15?
16.
Was he coming specifically to see you guys, or was he just happened to be there?
He came to see us, so we had we call him our Nashville Angel, Mr. Pete Fisher. But
I love Pete.
He's the best, and he invited him out that night. And the day after the Opry, we made our Opry debut, Pete was like, hey, JR called me last night and was talking about you guys. And then I think the next day after that, he called Jen, was like, hey, so I'm going to put a single on SiriusXM. Which one do you think it should be? And Jen just called me freaking out. She's like, I have no idea what to say right now. Which one do we pick? We have no plan, and we just kind of had to hodgepodge it together. But there's moments you have to do that. You just have to play it as it comes.
Man, and that had to be when those little moments happen. I have to imagine on a level of, man, you've been planting seeds with this one person for 4 years, and something is finally kind of, paying off. I guess is there. What do you kind of feel when that happens?
Relief.
I think I cried when he called, because I just it takes so long. And I even remember being on the Opry. It's like, golly, we've worked 5 years for 8.5 minutes. And it's just I don't know. It's just, you feel like all your hard work is paying off. And even though you're not where you want to be, you're not where you were. Yeah. So that's for me, being a type A person and getting gratification off successes, that of course makes me feel like I'm on top of the world.
Right.
Do you guys know your Enneagram?
Ooh, is that the number?
Yeah, the number.
So I can't remember exactly. I'm the loyalist.
Okay, this is totally a rabbit trail, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm a 9. That's what I remember. I was the peacekeeper, the peacemaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds right. I was going to guess you were a 3 based off of the whole type A, the achiever. I think I am tied with a 3 and a 6, which is 6, I believe, is a loyalist.
Yeah, that's what I think.
So
yep.
We're loyalists.
I'm half of you. I like it.
I'm just trying to keep the peace, man.
You are. You're over there keeping.
That's how this works, though. If we were both like me, we'd kill each other.
That's your guys' dynamic.
We're good. Yeah, we're a good dynamic.
So, man, just again, back to the kind of relationships. Are there any specific relationships that you developed over time that maybe initially felt like a long shot, or like there's no way this is gonna, how are we gonna get in with, maybe it was Leslie or.
I'd have to say John Marks probably, and I love John, and he's never been anything but great to us. But it took like a good 4-5 years to really get him to open up and kind of jump on the Smithfield train, if you will, because we approached him when he was at Sirius, and we had a good meeting with him, and we talked, but he never was really ready until a certain point to kind of go ahead and support our music and support what we did. And so when that finally happened, I think it was just, I think I fell out of my chair the day I saw one of our songs go on. I think it was New Boots or something. And I texted and called her freaking out. And I was like, you need to go look at Spotify New Boots right now. Yeah. Because you're not going to believe it.
I was going to say Pete Fisher, because I don't know if you've ever knew this. We got a record deal pretty early when we moved to town, and that label folded. And they would not give us our music back. They wanted like $30,000 for the music. And me and Trey are like, we're working part-time jobs, like writing, like we don't have 30 grand.
Totally. Yeah.
So when we were introduced to Pete, he sort of like, I never expected anything from him. We just wanted to learn from him. And we're like, hey, we have this indie record that we just finished up on Kickstarter. We raised the money to do it, and we don't know what to do with it.
So this was post leaving that label deal, and you guys did a Kickstarter.
We left the label. We had done the Kickstarter. We had the project locked and loaded, but we had no way to promote it or do a video for it or hire anything to help get it out there.
Yeah, and so Pete really took us under his wing, and he was like, I want to sit down and come up with a business plan for you guys. And so we budgeted out what a video would cost. We budgeted out what hiring a publicist would cost. And we just sort of went through every aspect that we would need to promote it. And it, added up to a lot. And we're like, all right, well, we don't know how we're going to get the money to do this without a label. And so Pete's like, well, I got a good friend at C&B Bank. I'm going to take you down at the bank. And
we're going to have.
And me and Cherry are like, well, we don't even have any credit. Is this a real thing? He's like, yeah, we're going to get you a music loan. Did you know about this?
I didn't even know music loans were a thing.
They exist.
We didn't either.
That's shocking.
Apparently, Luke Bryan had to do the same thing too.
Really?
Prior to his label deal. So.
Yeah, the president of the bank told us that when we sat down to play for him. She was like, yeah, I remember Luke Bryan sitting right where you guys were.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So
really?
That booking agent that we told you was our mentor and the first person we met to town actually ended up signing us. Oh, wow. And he was at this meeting. And so he had to prove that we had income coming in from shows. So he had
to show up at the bank and vouch for you guys.
Yeah, show dates and everything. And
Pete was there, and then me and Trey.
Yep.
And we played live for the bank and fluorescent lights and this whole round table.
Yep.
And the woman brought tears to her eyes, she said. And she's like, I'm going to give you this loan. So we got the loan right there that day and put that plan into action. And that's when we met Leslie, and then the whole thing happened. But again, I never thought in a million years one coffee with somebody a year later would turn into a business plan and then being on the Opry. Pete did so much for us, and I would have never expected that.
Nope.
Wow. Well, speaking of great relationships, shout out to Pete Fisher.
What up, Pete?
Hey, Pete.
That is so incredible. I'm thank you for sharing that. That's such fantastic story.
To this day, we still call Pete with just like random, like if we're just struggling with something, like, hey man, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Literally.
He's probably like, these people need to stop calling.
Every piece of advice. I'm not saying everybody's right about everything. Pete Fisher's been spot on all of his like pieces of advice.
Yeah. And for those who maybe don't know what Pete Fisher's done, maybe just you can give a little background on,
everything.
He's been involved in so many aspects of the industry over the years: management, label side, publishing. Ended up being the GM of the Grand Ole Opry for 17 years, I believe.
Yeah, he sort of like revived it.
Really brought it back to life in a lot of ways, and then left about, has it been 2? It hadn't been 2 years, has it?
I think almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years ago to be the president of the ACMs.
Okay, so Pete Fisher, huge part of your story, huge part of why you're sitting here today. Are there any that you can answer this question either from personal experience or from just things that you've seen? But what are some of the mistakes that people make when trying to build those relationships, like in the beginning?
I think here's what I will say: if you don't connect with the person, then don't force it. And I just say that in that when I say an organic relationship, I mean you genuinely enjoy spending time with that person. So if you spend time with somebody and it's just like, I hate being around this person, don't force it. Those relationships need to build themselves, but like everyone that has been involved with us, that has helped us along the way, that we built relationships with, started from a genuine interest in just being around that person. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of believing in the music, definitely, but also like getting to know you as a person and believing in you as a person.
Yeah.
And there was one of our mentors told us early on, he said, don't ever underestimate how far being a good person will get you. Right. And me and Trey were like, what? Like, just be nice to people. Like, that's how we were raised, And I was like, that's not okay, whatever. But now looking back, I'm like, golly, a lot of people helped us along the way because they liked us as people too. Mm-hmm. So that's why relationships are, like, to me, very, very key on top of good music. But sorry, I was going to say the one mistake, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is just don't expect anything from anybody.
Yeah.
Because I think when you go in and you expect people to help you and expect something from them, they're going to sense that and their guard's going to immediately go up because everybody wants something from them. Mm-hmm. So if you can be that ease and put off an aura of just, hey, I just want to get to know you and develop that and then let them come around and ask you for music, I think that
if they believe enough in you and your music, they'll come around and want to help in some way.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, and you hit on a really good point there. Like, they have to believe in you. That's something you can't necessarily force.
No.
And obviously, the music has to be amazing to start with. Mm-hmm. You have to have a natural chemistry as you guys have. So, zooming forward to today, you guys are doing this with a team behind you, and that obviously has involved building your relationships and finding team members to hire, from whether that's your manager to the people that are helping you guys do your content for your socials or advertising. How have you gone about finding the right people to be on your team?
Some of it's by chance, some of it's by intention, word of mouth. I mean, we met our manager at a show that our booking agent, Braden, had brought him to. And it's funny, we actually were with a company called Red Light for a while at first, and we actually chose them over our current manager. And a lot of people at that point would just go, okay, well, screw you, bye. You didn't choose me. But he kept coming to our shows over the years, even when we chose the other company over him. And so when things weren't working out there, we kind of went back and we're like, man, I liked Chris, and I wanted to work with him, and he's been good to us. He could have just walked away and had nothing to do with us ever again, but he was still supporting us, and that's kind of how that got formed there.
And when we took out the loan, one of the most important things was for us to hire a business manager to help us.
Very important.
Very, very important. Help us with a line of credit. So when we went out on the road, we don't have a label funding everything up front. So, part of that loan was helping tour support. So it was very, very important to hire a business manager, helping to pay our band guys and making sure that we're paying back that loan properly and just kind of keeping the money in order. Because at our old label, we didn't see inflow and outflow of cash. So when they folded and they put, a price tag on me and Trey, I've never felt like an object until that moment.
Sure. Yeah.
But we didn't have a business manager. So we weren't able to stick up for ourselves legally to say, well, no, you didn't spend that amount of money, because we have all the receipts and we've seen everything. Yep. So that was one of the first things we did, was hire a business manager, and then get a great lawyer. We met our lawyer through Braden again. Yeah.
When you're good at something, there's a lot of people that want to take it.
Yes.
So you got to hire somebody good to protect you from it. And,
so hiring the right relationships to protect you from the wrong relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
Is great.
And we lucked out and found a great attorney pretty early on that's been with us since close to the beginning, and has always protected us and done a great job. And a lot of people forget that it's a business. Literally, we're registered as Smithfield Incorporated with the state of Tennessee.
That's so serious.
And it's weird to think about it that way, but really, it is. We are. It's weird to think about it because we're artists, but we're also the co-owners of Smithfield Incorporated.
We've had to become really good business people,
we
though.
We have to hire the people that know how to do the things that we don't know how to do, and in the process, we've learned how to do a lot of those things ourselves.
Well, that's and even tying back into your recent release, that's like the perfect segue into that. We make our own.
That's why we called it that.
That's why we called it We Make Our Own.
That's so good, and I sensed that. I've ESP with you where you're going.
That must be why we wrote that great song that day.
But you guys, that's one thing that stood out to me, is you guys are so resourceful.
Just don't give up. We're annoying, and we just don't give up. We keep bugging people until they do what we want them to. We're not going away.
The two other things too that we hired that I think have been very, very helpful, would be, we have a social media team, just two girls that help our voices be heard on a bigger platform. So Trey and I do most of it, and especially the personal ones, because we don't ever want to lose our voice on social media. But, Facebook has become an advertisement game.
Yep.
And, when you have a show in Boston, and maybe you're not played on the radio there, maybe nobody's ever heard of you. Well, how are they going to hear about you? Well, we've got to get Facebook ads out to that market. That's the only way they're going to hear of us, unless they're a fan of ours. So just having somebody come in and strategically place ads for us on our content has been huge. And it's also helped our following grow organically.
But don't be fooled, all you Facebook people that send us direct messages and you say, I know you're probably not reading this. We read it.
We read it. The good and the bad.
Don't assume. We read them. We read them.
Well, and that's one thing I wanted to compliment you guys on, is just on your Insta stalking you guys before the interview. And you guys have built an Instagram page of 60,000 followers. That's pretty enviable for a lot of independent artists, or even signed artists for that matter.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We started with 2 years ago, we had maybe 2,000 followers. And
so that's within 2 years.
Within 2 years, yeah.
Wow.
And when we came out on the highway, another mentor of ours, Butch Waugh, who used to be at Sony, he was a VP of Sony, and we met him through our old management firm, and he just really liked us and just kept up with us. So we would go to coffee. Everything revolves around coffee for me and Trey.
That's the secret, actually, to Nashville.
It really is a secret.
Coffee.
Go to coffee or drinks with everybody, because you never know.
A lot of people. Yeah.
But Butch sits us down and he's like, Jen, Trey, I got to say, the music's great. Now it's out, but your social media numbers are not great. Are y'all working with anybody? And we were like, no, we're kind of running it on ourselves. And that's when he introduced us to Mary, who really helped grow it with us, and through advertisements and Facebook ads and pages and just getting our music out there. And so in 2 years, we've grown it
from 2,000 to 60,000.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I want to dive deeper into that, and we will, but we're going to do a special segment just on that in case people aren't really interested in getting into the nitty gritty, the down and dirty of how you guys did that. But if people want to check that out, it is on the show notes page at madeitmusic.com. You can just go to the episodes and you find the Smithfield episode, and it'll be right there. So we'll dive into that. As we're kind of closing out, I want to get to our final fun segment, which we call the lightning round. Lightning round. Here we go.
My heart's pounding.
Biggest stage mishap.
mishap?
Oh, Easter, 12 years old, tripped over the microphone right after we were praising Jesus. It was great. It was embarrassing.
Jeez.
That was funny.
We were in Colorado, and I don't know if it was actually a mishap, but it was like right after we were done, we said goodnight, and I reached over and like grabbed somebody's hand, and they pulled just a little too hard. And I teetered and like came this close to just like eating it on the front row. And I kind of did like a weird like arm wave thing and like went back and then walked off the stage and waved at everybody. I guess that was a mishap avoidance.
Yeah. I actually fell all the way.
You fell all the way.
She just fell all the way.
Ate it.
I
Okay.
came close to death there.
Let's say one thing you wish would change in the music industry.
We're getting real.
How real do you want?
As real as you want to get?
As real as we want to get. And this is in the industry, so I guess I'm just, from my perspective, I feel like we tend to live in such a name game town. To the point where like we would be in publishing meetings playing a song, and the first question they would ask before we even played the song was, who did you write it with? And my response, what I always wanted to say was, does it really matter? Like, why don't we listen to the song? Let me know if you like the song, and then I'll tell you who I wrote it with. So if I could change one thing, maybe I would change that. I don't know.
That's sort of similar to yours. Like, I feel like Nashville and a lot of the music cities live in like their own bubble, and it reminds me of high school. And it's like, oh, they're cool. Like so-and-so said they're cool, so I'll sign them. They may not even have anything going on, and they just sign this rando person who is the cool kid in town, you know? So if I could change one thing, I would change that. Yeah. Just getting outside of the bubble and looking at, will this act work outside of Nashville? Yeah. Not who's cool or, you know, who's talking about who or whatever, but.
It's good. It's a good answer. Favorite city to play?
Ooh. Texas, Dallas, because that's my home. What?
Dallas, Texas?
Yeah.
Just to go outside the box of my hometown, I'm going to say Seattle.
Ooh.
Mostly selfish reasons.
Yeah, because of coffee.
Because I love coffee. And so maybe it's not exactly the show as much as it is the post or pre-show
Do you
activities.
have a favorite coffee in Seattle?
Ooh, there's so many. See,
that doesn't count as a lightning round question. That's a selfish question.
That's okay.
I want to know.
We did a coffee crawl for our drummer's 26th birthday one year, where we hit like 6 of the top-rated coffee shops in Seattle. One of the coolest to me is the La Marzocco showroom. Because they have the radio station there, and plus those guys know how to make a latte for sure.
They do. That's awesome. First song that really impacted your life?
Oh, that's hard. Well, I'm going to say the first record I ever got was a Patsy Cline Greatest Hits. My grandma gave it to me. Nice. And I heard like Crazy's probably, that was the first song I ever sang on stage. But at the time, I thought it had just come out because I didn't know the difference. So
that's awesome.
Impacted my life. Well, there was a song that the Goo Goo Dolls did in 1995 on an album called A Boy Named Goo.
I knew you were going to say Goo Goo Dolls.
It was called Name.
Oh, good call there.
That was, I say impacted my life because that was the song that I sang on that talent show.
Yeah.
It was the first song I ever sang in public, and it's what pushed me to do music. So.
Oh.
That is awesome.
Gosh.
Sweet. And the last question that I have, the most unique instrument or sound that you've ever put on a record?
Ooh, okay. I don't know what that thing was that you used on We Make Our Own.
We're going to throw this question back on you. No.
This little box, and you were like, just make a noise. And we were like, oh. And then just like,
oh, yeah.
Remember?
The little
and We Make Our Own.
Had a little keyboard on it. And,
it's called the OP1.
Okay.
Yeah, the OP1.
Well,
I didn't know. I'm like,
the
box?
OP1. I think we added some lap steel to, I think it was We Make Our Own, didn't we?
Yeah, but that's not like super unique or, it's country music.
For what we do, it was just because it was kind of us branching out a little bit. We hadn't typically used that, so.
I think it's lap steel. Yeah, there's a little sample, but the OP1, that is a cool moment. So people can go hear that on the record.
Yes.
Which is out at all services. So anything you want to add about the record? while you're on here, this is your chance to shamelessly self-promote to the world.
Yeah. Well, we already kind of covered it a little bit. I mean, it's obviously called We Make Our Own, and it's been 3 years since we put out anything, and we just kind of wanted to give, it's more, I know everyone says this, but it's more for the fans than anything. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
It's stuff that we just love. You know, everybody always talks about how do you select the music that you put on your project. It's like, because it's the stuff we enjoy listening to, and it's kind of that simple, you know?
Yeah, I think the production too.
All the fans enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. So how can people find you, interact with you, socials, website, all that good stuff?
At smithfieldmusic.com. Make sure you put the music or you will get the bacon company. Because they're at Smithfield, so we couldn't take that.
But go there too, because that's good.
Because who doesn't love bacon, right?
Yeah.
At Smithfield Music on all socials, and
Awesome. And again, we're going to do a quick little 5-minute deep dive into how you guys built the Instagram from 2,000 to 60,000.
Woo!
So people can find that on madeitmusic.com under the episodes page for Smithfield. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. Y'all are amazing. I am a huge fan, a very biased fan, but a huge fan nonetheless. So thanks for taking the time to be on.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for hanging out on this YouTube video with us. In case you didn't know, this is from the Made It in Music podcast, Season 2. We have a ton of awesome guests that come on the show, all music business professionals, to share their knowledge and experience with you. So if you want to subscribe to not miss any future episodes, hit that subscribe button on YouTube and you'll be notified about all of them. And in case you didn't know, we do a deep dive for every episode where we go really in depth on a certain topic from each podcast episode. So sign up right here to get free unlimited access to all of those deep dives from our podcast. And if you want to watch another Made It in Music podcast video, click here.